which I've had today. So started to go for a walk, and hopefully the internet's a good, and the noise isn't too bad. Obviously, I'm a lion, so I'm just roaming the jungle, right? So if you hear that, apologies in advance. But
Your voice sounds fine, actually. I can hear you well.
perfect. All right. So you scored AMA.
Yep, another one. I think the last one we
Yeah,
did
I
was
mean,
6 weeks. We do them on a 6 weekly cycle, so it's been a while.
mhm. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it came down to the votes that changed the way we run these, right? It was two Twitter spaces for every one Discord space. I guess for those who haven't been to one of these before, what I like personally about it and some of the feedback that I've seen too is, I guess it's a bit more intimate, right? Because it's just in our Discord, it's just with holders. So, any questions you want to ask about the project, anything we'd like to discuss, it's really open to the floor. For those who aren't able to make it live, you're able to send in your questions earlier. So we start off with those, and then we just jump into Q&A with anybody on who'd like to come up and speak. Definitely encourage that as well. And we'll be reading Kabanaba. Is that
Yeah,
right
we'll be
now?
reading through Cabana Bar, correct. Yep. We've taken questions from a couple of different places this time, actually. So there was the AMA channel in Discord, where we collected a whole bunch of
Hmm.
questions, and there was a on Twitter as well, and some of the groups that we're in Twitter as well. So there's three different locations where we've got questions from. So there will be a couple of questions that we'll be going through, um, which will take up majority of the AMA, and we should have some time to bring some people up as well, depending on how long it takes for us to get through the questions.
Awesome. All right. So with that, then, should we just get straight into it?
Yeah, perfect. So if you guys do head over to the AMA channel, you'll see some questions. To kick things off, we have the laziest lion. So the question was, can there be more transparency regarding the rewards giveaways? Like, can we know that our name is in the drawing, and can the drawing be live so everyone in the community can drop in and watch instead of it being a giant secret and a little sus, to be honest?
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, and definitely like agree. Like we want to change how that works. Um, it actually is one of like the big goals for next year, specifically Q1. Like in terms of like what's the roadmap? We've got to ask this question, and it's something I want to discuss with the community as well. In terms of like we want to see actually, another public roadmap that's put out there, or maybe we just communicate it in a different way. But it's a topic for later. But in terms of rewards, it's something we want to upgrade,
Mhm.
uh, and including the way that we send out those rewards. I think there are cooler ways we can probably do it. Like maybe like an opt-in, opt-out system. Maybe you want to use your tickets into the raffle in a certain month. Maybe use them for different prizes, so it's not just always lines. Um, so I think there are definitely ways we can play with it, and I guess like inspiration in terms of why we want to upgrade it and actually spend some time focusing on it. Since we've launched that, that was obviously like one of the main like USPs of Lazy Lines, like one of the big like unique selling points, right? Or value props. Like I think people pointed to rewards straight away, and it was a way of sharing like value with the community from day one. And since then, we've seen like many other projects, try and imitate it, which is fine. Like that's part of Web3. Like we're all building on top of each other, and taking inspiration here and there, and you don't want to like discourage that. And like we've seen some people just straight out like copy rewards as well with just like different styling, which made us, think a while back. It was like, well, why don't we just, offer this platform to like other projects and they can just use that? And, thinking even bigger than that, early on we were, like the future rewards was always, could we turn this into like a bigger reward slash loyalty program? You know, if you ask me my thoughts on like where I think like Web3 is going with some of these things, there's like there's like millions of like ideas, but like in terms of loyalty programs, I think that's one that we're probably going to see in the near, maybe like depending, we're going to see that in the future change for sure. I think we'll reach a time where you can take your points out of the Amex card, right, and it'll be interchangeable, and there'll be benefits of plugging play into like different systems. You won't have to worry about connecting all these different loyalty programs. So um, the rewards has that. Um, And the best part of it is we don't have to focus so much on creating it for other people from day one. Let's just focus on making it the best that we can for Lazy Lions, right? And making sure that it gives the most value that we can to them. It gives us a vehicle to tie in with partners as well. If we're doing collabs, there are like giveaways and things like, why not tie it into rewards instead of using your points for the raffle? That one use it to unlock certain benefits with the partner, or like there could be a whole range. Yeah, it could be things in the Discord. It could be more stylistic things rather than actual like items or like merch or apparel, whatever that is. Could be digital items too. So there's a whole things that we could play around with. So that's why it's a bit of a focus or it's a big focus for Q1.
Yep, exactly. Perfect.
Mm.
Moving on. So we have NFT Mario. The question is there a metaverse strategy? Bungalows into the metaverse, other side land, partner with Adidas Virtual Gear. Well, our partner's Puma, but yeah, Puma Virtual Gear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so just asking if is there any metaverse strategy plays for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, loosely tied to the metaverse was the blockchain game that we obviously put the vote with the community in terms of resources. That was a big discussion. It was like, big majority of the community was like, let's not go down the route of the blockchain game. So we've pivoted from that. And the raw token, like the initial plans that we had with that, and that we were speaking, on tokenomics and potential partners was like primarily focused on that blockchain game, right? Like we've got the whole GDD and what that token looks like and how it sets in. And we still have those plans, but that's shelved. So the token we're rethinking about and the loyalty program is something like one of those things that's leading right now. Building out a token, especially the utility, not something that we've seen done well at all in the Web3 space. It's something else I'd like to, I think we are going to touch on because I'm assuming it's going to be one of the questions later on. About ERC20 tokens, specifically from other projects. We saw, BAP, that's one recently who's offered tokens to holders. Great, like more rewards for holders if they are rewards. But this is one of the things that I'll explain a bit more because I don't think it's good for everybody to just have all the facts on like how these things work because we've obviously been in the space for a while now, and we get to see the actual ins and outs of a lot of these things that maybe sometimes people don't. So number one goal is making sure that the community is healthy. They don't get I think we don't allow like bad things to happen to the community, right? So but we'll discuss that a bit later on. So in terms of the metaverse strategy, blockchain game tokenomics, so now that our focus is on other things, it doesn't mean we're not going to be in blockchain games. Like
Yeah.
part of like the beauty of Web3 is like so many of these partners already incorporate Lazy Lions into their games, right? Like by default, because we get partnership requests like pretty much all the time on these things as well, right? Like the amount of times we get pitched a metaverse strategy or a new game, it's wild how many people are trying to build the next thing. So there's the issue is all these people want partnerships, and it's really because they want to be able to leverage our like essentially marketing and social media presence for their own gain, right? Like the value tips into their side. Like when we look at the value exchange, it doesn't actually come into favor for the community or Lazy Lions as a whole. It doesn't end up working that way. A lot of the times it's like white lists or something like that, and it's like that's not that is not value. Really, that's not value. That's actually a ton of risk. Majority of the time, it does not work out. So that's part of the issue, but we definitely encourage people to just incorporate us into their games. And I think that's, where we're probably headed with that is some of the more well-established games, like we'll be, maybe those ones will put more efforts into actually creating like a proper partnership with. And some will choose to buy land and just build things on, like for example, with Sandbox. Like, that's probably the majority of the metaverse strategy right now. We have Sandbox land. We're actively building on the land. We're in touch with the Sandbox team. We're looking at doing things with them. So that's probably how I would describe the strategy right now, like where we're up to with things.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Another question
It's just
from.
yeah,
Oh,
and just
yeah,
sorry, just with that nine as well. It's like
yeah,
you know, I think it's because we're on the side of just seeing so many of these applications, like and
yeah,
like partnership requests. There's no rush on this, right? Like I don't think we're gonna miss the next thing, right? Like if if the actual like the proper metaverse comes out, we're not gonna like be blindsided and just be oblivious to it, right? And it's not gonna happen in a day, and I'm like, oh damn, we missed our shot. We can't be in this metaverse anymore. It's not gonna work like that, right? So there's no like real inherent pressure on us to go like and hunt this metaverse.
hmm
I don't see the actual value return for that. I think we can wait, see which one works, right? See what happens. We already placed bets in Sandbox. That's cool. Let's keep going with that. But
hmm
see which one actually works, and then when we do, we'll set up there.
yeah. And I think part of that is like there's so many other projects right now trying to build the metaverse, big projects as well, and the initial budget that we had allocated for it in order to try and compete with that, it just didn't make sense, and we can use those funds to allocate elsewhere that'll help build out Lazy Lines in a different way.
Yeah, correct. It's not it's not inexpensive to build out on these metaverses, right? Because a lot of the time they're really novel, of course. Like that's as you could imagine. So like builders on these things don't come often cheap, and even with us being like quite tech savvy and understanding what is a legit and what isn't a legit quote, it's still hard finding the resources for it. So is that the best place to put our resources? Probably not. And just want to touch on the previous questions as well. Saw a reply to change rewards to be able to incorporate that kind of thing that we were talking about. It's not a simple job the way it's set up. Rewards is it's a pretty advanced system, I would say, considering like the Twitter integration, the Discord integration, the Ethereum integration, the way it automatically checks, profile photos, all those type of things. It's not a straightforward system, um, and even the giveaway component. So to be able to change it to do the way we've described in like in an exciting way, we've scoped out on the project, and it's not one of those things we're going to be able to switch on for next month. This will be like a big Q1 goal.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So another question from NFT Mario actually is asking how big is the team? Is it only two people or more? I read something of 17 people. If more than two, then it's very intransparent. What are the next steps and what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, fair. So as soon as the bear market hit, just like we took advice from like people who had been through these things before, and we obviously made changes immediately, and they wasn't super popular, but I think it worked out considering the resources and you know and all that. Right now, it's a mix of full time, part time. There's three full time. There's six part time. So there's like nine, and then there's a bunch of contractors, and that works out really well because our burn isn't at a like high level. It's at a good level,
hmm
so like there's no worries there. For projects, like we just ramp up with contractors whenever we need them, and we just go project based. Um, for example, with things like Sandbox, that's one. The devs and things like that, there's no real need to have, devs on 24/7. Like the resourcing, it doesn't make sense, right? So when we do need devs, like for things like there are like Web3 applications, then those things will be project based, and that's been working out quite well.
Yeah.
We recently brought on a marketing assistant and a second project manager, and they're going to help quite a bit. Yeah, the marketing assistant will is focused on just more on social media, um, those weekly spaces, interviews, just getting more coverage for Lazy Lions. Uh,
Medium articles too.
as with the Medium articles, of course, like a bunch of these things that will save us a lot of time and get Lazy Lions more out there too. So that's going to be really good, and the project manager is going to allow us to do more things. I think better, right?
Yeah.
Because there's been I think some like healthy criticism that like, hey, maybe we got to be doing a little bit more, doing like this like H2 like this year when we look back at it. There was a lot of restructuring and a lot of wild changes. I think we went through like the whole world saw like a major crash, so uh, we had to accordingly react to that. But with this next project manager, be able to set up our got our goals for Q1 and be able to do things, do a bit more things, and do them better too.
Yeah, spot on. Cool. Got a question from JL2 Tech. I am a new member of Lazy Lions. What is the incentive to own more than one full set? Is the team in need of the royalty funds, or is the secondary market primarily for new members?
Is the team in need of royalty funds, or is the
Secondary.
market primarily for second? Man, what does that mean exactly? I'm not 100%
Is the
sure.
team in need of royalty funds, or is the secondary market primarily for new members? Hmm.
I don't really understand that question.
Let's tackle the first
Um,
part. So, what is the incentive
yeah,
to own more than one full set right now?
good question. So at the moment, if you look at like historically when we've done things like
Yep.
airdrops of the drinks or bungalows, uh, if you had multiple lines or even comics, then you could claim multiple of those NFTs as well. In terms of rewards, every additional line gets you an entry into the raffle for those lazy lines every single month. In terms of sets, with the comic, only those who had a full set were able to get the comic. That was a surprise.
Yep.
Moving forward, what we'd like to do is with our reward system is incorporate the fact that you do have these sets and that can multiply things. And just to give you an idea on like how this fits long term, the intention is, and we're still going through this project brief and making sure that uh, it's detailed. Like we're still at that early stage of this in terms of planning because there's a lot of cool things that we can do with rewards. But like what if like how we're seeing it is like very long term because it's like if we upgrade rewards now and we introduce like a point system, right? And that point system works, and we're finding that it does give value to the community, and people are enjoying the tokenomics and the game theory around it. Then that could potentially incorporate the raw token later on, and potentially that's how you get the multipliers. Um, with holding those sets. We're doing certain activities on social media that boost the brand, and maybe they can be even be like community votes, for example, where every month people can submit the use of the way that they've used Lazy Lions IP to boost the brand, and then we can there's a certain amount of like raw token or the points that we use that isn't necessarily ERC20 to begin with, and then we can do like a vote every single month, and you can choose who those points go to. So, just like as an idea of like how we can incorporate like community into this as well as brand building. So right now, we're thinking heavily about how we can incorporate those things so that way there are incentives to get sets. There are incentives to, hold multiple lines as well. That is something that we're thinking about with rewards.
Awesome. Okay. So we've got a couple questions actually from Moonshot. We'll tackle the first one though. When can we expect raw token and its probable use cases?
There's like no like defined ETA on this. It's too early. There's too much like uncertainty. Plus, we wouldn't release it transparently, we wouldn't release it during this kind of like this side of the cycle. I don't think it would make sense at all. Unless there was something significant to happen, which looks like in the near term, having spoken with our other partners as well, who are potentially going to be helping us build this thing out, everybody like it's looking sort of bleak in like the near short term. So it's like, what, don't think there's like a hurry to release it, which is fine because it allows us more time to build out this thing and get it as right as we can.
Awesome.
Again, and maybe is there a question about token like ERC20 tokens and like BAP and that later on? We can touch on it then rather than yeah.
This would be the only question regarding tokens, from what I see.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll just save it for the end and we can expand a bit more on ERC20 tokens.
Yeah, perfect. So, will there be more LL comics? If not, how and when will we learn more about Glitch and LL lore?
We want to expand the lore. The the comics didn't we answered the question we had come up last time as well.
Yeah.
The comics were like I don't know if it hit the mark. We're just looking at like looking at the volume traded for these things and just looking at like the general reaction, there was some noise, but then it sort of died out pretty quick. So, and these things don't come without resourcing. So it's like, with a fair bit of resourcing as well to get them done properly. So it's like, I don't know if the ROI is there for the project in terms of doing another comic. Could we do it a different way though? And expand the lore, like for sure, right? It's while do it like incorporating the lore is like always a focus with projects. Um, in terms of like another like direct comic or something like that goes further into it. It's not like a deep focus right now for Q1.
Yep.
Yeah. But like by what I mean by that is like, for example, if there's like a seasonal event and we want to incorporate like the Lazy Lions lore and there's a good opportunity to do that, like of course.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do, we try and think about how we can actually expand on it as well. And that might be done through the loyalty program that we're creating. If we can tie that aspect in there, we could get we could get the community, pitching in their lore, and the ones that come in with the best ideas get extra points on the loyalty program. So anything like that we could incorporate will expand the Lazy Lions lore, um, and that's always at the forefront of our minds as well. Great. We have another question from Moonshot. Will Lionesses be another mint or more of a reward for holders?
That we haven't determined how we're going to do it just yet.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Perfect. So, do you have other?
What I can say though, like, and we mentioned this before, but it's worth reiterating for
Mhm.
anyone who probably missed that as well. Is like we don't have plans to drop more NFTs in this cycle. Um,
Yeah.
and not like in a traditional fashion. I just don't think it makes sense for the holders. It doesn't make sense for the project. Um, so that's not something that we're focused on.
Perfect. And last question from Moonshot. Do you have plans on incorporating staking at any point? This was asked a few times actually, so it'd probably be worth just hitting it on the head here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I mean, this gets asked, I think, every single Discord AMA, which is fine
Mhm.
because we've got new holders all the time, which is incredible.
Mhm.
I feel like every day we're always welcoming people on Twitter. And staking is one of those things where you see it in other projects. You even see it in Ethereum, and you go, "Well, hold on." You just do the quick math when you look at it, and everybody's cheering about how there's all these tokens are now delisted, and you get rewards for it, and you're like, "Wow, this is incredible." And you look at Lazy Lions, you're like,
Mhm.
"Why aren't these bozos doing it?" So to put it like simply, there are legal reasons why we haven't done it. It's pretty much as simple as that. Like we've spoken to legal, and rewards the way we set it up, thumbs up. Staking, they were like, stay away from that. Like that was from early on, and like all other legal advice that I've gotten, which is based in Oz, but to my understanding, is actually the same in the US because a lot of the Australian law when it comes to crypto actually just mimics what the US does. And so I'm pretty sure, but like, don't quote me that it's in the same. It's the same in the US. Now, how do these, other projects get around with it? Truthfully speaking, having spoken with other founders, and seeing their reaction when like telling them this, I
Mhm.
don't think many of them really knew. To be transparent with you guys, I don't think they know about the legal stuff. And the ones that do, I think they're being a bit cheeky with it. And obviously we're very early, and who knows what the regulators are going to do. But why put ourselves in danger's way for, essentially something that I don't, you know, yes, it artificially decreases the supply, and yes, it makes it harder for holders to, sell their lines because it's an extra step. Imagine you got Ledger and you've got, your little creature thing or whatever the token is, your little, dynamic dingoes. If that's an actual project, apologies, but if you got that thing staked up and you're earning like Dingo do every single day for just locking it up in another smart contract. If you do want to sell it, there's that little bit extra resistance because you got to pull out your ledger and then you're gonna unstake it, then you got to go list it, and like I think that's where the value comes in terms of like overall to the holders because that like pushes the floor price up, and not really because it doesn't really change the sentiment of people wanting to sell. Um, yeah, so we've seen other projects do this, and I have seen yes, like floor prices increase because of this, yes, but from what I've seen, what it ends up doing is it makes the project extremely volatile because they'll have like these pumps and then, the floor just will not stick. And I've spoken with other projects, some of the more switched on guys and girls who, who run some of these projects who incorporate staking, the top ones, and that's the feedback that I've asked them like, the benefits of staking, and like the floor just won't stick. So if you're focused on if you're asking this question because you're keen to see the floor price go up, I actually don't think it's a great time to do it, and especially when you consider the legal consequences, it's not worth. That may change because maybe legal comes around and they go, oh, like there's a way to do it in a nice way, and then instead of just it being a bland, put your token in, we give you rewards, floor price goes up. Maybe there's a cooler way to do it. But yeah, with all things, let's see how the regulators act with this.
Great. Awesome. Moving on to Woozy Pelican. He has a question. So, what's the progress update on the trait channels in the Lazy Lions Discord? I'll take this one. So, right now, if you were to head over to the Get Roles channel, you'll notice that you can obtain, the roles for all the different trait groups, and then that'll unlock the channel for you. So, your Discord might be a lot more cleaner right now as well. You may have noticed, but once you unlock the trait channels, you can jump in there and talk about anyone that you want. So, they're all set up. Go get your roles. Doesn't have to be now, obviously, but yeah, that's all complete and ready to go. Cool.
Absolutely.
Woozy as well. We got another question. So, what do you feel Lazy Lions or the team have recently improved upon? What do you feel Lazy Lions or the team still need to do better?
Good question.
I think from our perspective, I think we've got a lot more. Obviously, one of the the focuses was getting our social media more active, getting Asher on more Twitter Spaces and interviews. I think we've done well there, and obviously taking in more feedback from the community and just interacting with the community a lot more was one of the things that we've done better.
Yeah. I mean, we've gotten good feedback about being more transparent with these things, which I think we've definitely got scar tissue from previous um times where we haven't explained things up front,
Mm-hmm.
and then changes have been made, and it's been really abrupt and totally understand. So it's let's not do that anymore. We said that last time. And I think that's something that, yeah, like Nine said, we've kept that up. um in terms of how can we do things that we can do better, I think our focus on projects
Mm-hmm.
and what projects we choose to undertake. It's it's in a space where it's just constantly changing, and there's all these shiny new things that come up as well. um so just making sure that the projects and things that we choose to do, especially for Q1,
Mm-hmm.
actually hit objectives that we care about.
Yeah.
That's something. And yeah, so we've changed the way we set up the goals for Q1. We've spoken with members from the community about these goals as well, and a bit more detail too, um, high level, so that way we can get feedback on that. Something that we've done and we're going to continue to do as well as we're ironing out, um, and just showing it to other advisors as well who have reviewed this thing with us. We've jumped on calls and be what do you think about this plan, this overall strategy, and it's been thumbs up so far. But I think there are some still little kinks and stuff that we just got to iron out with the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely to add on to that as well is internal processes have become much more, streamlined for us now. So everything is just working in tandem. We have more time to focus on the
That's
bigger things. Yeah, be a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's been good. Getting the burn at a good level,
Mm-hmm.
making sure things are sustainable. Yeah, that's all been good. In addition to what we can do better, it's being more active on social media as well. I still think that one could be a lot better. And just getting on, particularly some of these events, even if it's virtually as well, they tend to work.
Yeah,
It's yeah, it brings good ROI. So there's always new holders who join because of those things. It gets good attention.
that's
Community
Woozy's
seems to
next
enjoy that
question.
as well.
Yeah, that was actually Woozy's next question. He was asking,
Oh,
can you touch upon your experience to date in attending IRL events for Lions, and do you find they've brought value to the brand? So there you
I think it does bring value to the brand. Yeah, I guess it just depends on where these things are, expected attendance, and travel time, and the costs involved with that. just determine which ones make sense. But we do have plans to go to more of these events next year. We've already started speaking uh, with some of these partners,
Mhm.
but not partners, sorry, but with some of these events, and yeah, it's looking like at the moment not confirmed, but it's looking like NFTLA looks like that one is probably going ahead. I'd say NFT NYC and NFT Paris as well. Looks like that's going to be an exciting one. We were speaking with them. From what we heard so far, the plans look pretty exciting, and like fairly big projects who are going there too. Other big projects, so that's looking like another one we want to go, which would be cool because it'll be the first time that we'll be in Europe with holders. So uh, yeah, those are some of the main ones right now. Maybe South by, but these aren't confirmed. So we'd hate for like people to like book travels to these things. They're not confirmed just yet.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Um, Muzi as well with another question. I would like to see more holder meetups in the next few months. How can the project help support this? Woozy personally suggests that we have a location-based Discord roles to assist with organizing events and finding each other. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that the community wants, I mean, that's fairly quick to set up.
Yeah,
Yeah, if that's something that helps, then absolutely.
yeah, definitely open to it. Awesome. We got a question from King Bumble. Is there a brand strategy slash marketing plan?
So the brand strategy right now, we've actually just gone through like this, not rebrand. I mentioned this before. We haven't published the new website, the new look, and those things just yet because we're still working on like the pages um for for some of the things that we're focused on for Q1, like one of them being the new reward system, and so like the look of that, as well as like some of these other things that we're focused on, like the next version of Lazy, what that looks like. We've got a lot of feedback on the type of apparel that it should be. And is there a question about Lazy? Because
Yeah, there
um,
is. Yeah,
there is. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll talk more about Lazy then. But
yes, correct.
yeah, so there is like a brand strategy and like brand guidelines and all those things, which are really helpful. We just haven't published the new look just yet. But I really like the way it's come out. I think it really like it's not like wildly different, but it's I think a lot more sleeker. It's represents like the power brand, and it just
Yeah,
um yeah, I think it's a good new look.
perfect. Awesome. Got a question from Lazy David. Has there been consideration or even an approach from some sort of outside investment from private investors that would help accelerate brand and product growth?
We've spoken to VCs. Yeah, I mean, we actually spoke to some at NFT Fest, but
Mhm.
we've there's right now, like in terms of, I mentioned this before. It's not that we're against like VC and investment and stuff like that, but I do like would we get like amazing like ROI on that deal right now? And like, is there a massive need to get investment like right now? I don't think so, especially considering like, it's these things don't, obviously it's not just all upside, right? Like that's not the world that we live in. And there is going to be some focus on the VC, and it's like, they're not saying they're terrible, not saying that it would always be a bad thing, but I like the fact that we're just, like we can just be focused on the holders with this. Like there's no added like, hey, like we also got to be, providing value to this other group now. It's like, oh, like it's a bit, I don't know if that's something that we need right now. I don't think the benefits outweigh that. That's the big thing. And if there was something glaringly obvious, like, hey, like, we need investment for this thing, because, this thing we need to put like, gas on the fire right now to do this, then, okay, great. But we have our war chest, our burns at a good level. We're not like at fear of like running out. I hear, we've heard the whole, this is the best time to raise, but I mean, in this, like, these economic circumstances right now, we've spoken just like transparently with these VCs and just other people in the space. And like all these valuations are down like 80, 90%. Right. So it's like, you're getting like a tenth of what, or maybe a fifth of the value that you would be getting a year ago. And like, not to say like that's how we should be looking at things, because I mean, like the past is in the past, but when you look at the ROI again, it's just like all those things combined, does it make sense? Like, we're super confident that we're going to be around in the long term, anyways. We've set up the project to be like that. We didn't go crazy and spend a lot of coin on marketing initiatives that may or may not have worked out early on and would have put the whole project at risk. So feeling pretty comfy.
Yeah, awesome. Got another, well, new holder question. So Wood, can you share anything on the next steps for Lazy Series? So this was a Lazy Series question.
Absolutely, yeah. So the intention was to release it before the end of the year. We're looking at the gear. We weren't 100% sure about the quality. We also had a focus on taking this to Web 2 users as well. And we were working out the go-to-market strategy for this as well. Didn't feel super confident that it was going to hit. And we're like, this feels a bit too rushed. So instead of releasing it, like considering the concerns with the quality of the merch, also the way we were going to integrate tokens, and the go-to-market plan, we're like too many red flags. Let's just not do this. So we chose against it. We've still got the we've still got the output from that, because we've obviously like looked into the merch and like finding manufacturers and deciding on what the apparel pieces are going to be and what they're going to look like. And also we worked on to like how we're going to integrate the tokens. So, but it's just not going to happen this side of the year. Now, in terms of like the original like Series 1 holders, so here's the position that we're at, right? Obviously, we haven't forgotten about the Series 1 holders. The smart contract we haven't released. Now, internally, right, when we were planning this thing, which doesn't surprise me because this happens quite often, when we were talking about how we would integrate the token, what it would look like, lo and behold, Azuki came out with the PBT, the physical back token. And I remember we were looking at that thing and reading through the GitHub and the documents, and we went, hey,
Yeah,
that's actually what we were planning on doing anyways.
I remember reading that and
Right?
then
Especially with,
sharing it to you
yeah,
in Slack and
right.
being like, "Oh, there we go." Yeah,
There you go. Which doesn't surprise me, right? I mean, like we're all builders in the space. Like we've all thought about the same ideas. I'm pretty like everything that I've seen in the space, like nothing's really come out to me and went like, wow, we haven't thought about that before. Right? Like that, no. It's just, what has sometimes surprised me is the quality of these things and the way they're done. And like I give kudos to these projects that do it really well. Zuki being one of them, the way that they've released these things, I am a fan of how that's been released in terms of the actual founder and stuff, different story. But uh, so that, kudos to them. It's the PVT, is that something that we can like incorporate into our like apparel and physical products moving forward? I think it is. It saves us time from having to create the whole smart contract and the logic from scratch, and realistically, it's going to be the same thing anyways. The thing is open source. Um, I am a big fan of having the tokens embedded into the apparel as well, especially in a way that can't be like, easily duped. It's not like just a QR code where you could print it again, but it's an actual like NFC chip inside. It has encryption and all those things too, and the whole scan to earn thing. It's pretty cool. It makes sense. Um, so that is something that we're looking at incorporating into like Lazy Series 2. The big thing that we were thinking about was how can we incorporate the dynamics of like random rarities, like the concept of like rarity in NFTs to physical items, right? And just to give a bit of background to how this works, if people haven't seen it, is you get the physical item, you scan it with your phone. There's an NFC chip inside there, and then you get an NFT once you scan it. And then at that point of scan is when you find out what the rarity of that apparel piece is. So they all look the same, but the actual token linked to it might be a rare one, it might be a common one, it might be an ultra rare, for example, whatever you want to call them, which is pretty cool. It's almost like blind packaging, but with apparel pieces, right? So I think that is something really cool. I do see like potential in something like that, blowing up and being something that people are really interested in. It's like a fun thing as well. A really cool thing to wear out as well. I would like, I get keen at the idea of just thinking about like wearing out those things. And like if we wouldn't wear them ourselves, we wouldn't put them out there either. Like obviously, with all the lazy apparel stuff. But I think this is just even like this is like a step forward to incorporating tokens to that. So that's the stage that we're at. We don't want to release um the next version because it was different gear to Lazy Series One. And just for those reasons we didn't launch it this quarter. In terms of the smart contract, we haven't deployed it just yet. We are still determining. It's probably going to be PBT that we launch for Lazy Lions. We just didn't incorporate it in a way that makes sense for the project.
Yeah. Wood has another question, which pretty much just ties into what his first question was. So there are a few projects that have found various ways to grow volume, price, etc. through the bear. What projects are you watching outside of LL, and is there anything you're taking away from their growth? What has impressed you the most?
We're always keeping tabs on like every project and seeing what they're doing. And we can quickly tell when someone's doing something innovative or it's the same old thing, and it's maybe just like a marketing push that's working quite well. I do like how Pudgies have been doing things. One that we've been keeping track of quite a while. I think Lucanets is doing really well there. And the project that they're doing in a way that makes sense for their team, and makes sense for the brand. Like so, that's a cool one. I think there's like some inspiration there that we can take from for sure. But like I mentioned, I've always been a fan of how Azuki has done their branding. Um, that's been another one, and even the way they've been, kudos to them for like open sourcing the smart contract and stuff. I mean, even though realistically it was going to be, like it's going to be on Etherscan and all that, anyways. But still, like the approach that they've done it, and encouraging like community participation, I think that's great. So yeah, I would say those two. There's a lot of projects who are doing things that I don't think are sustainable either as well. And I think, I could see like desperation too. And maybe that's coming from like a lack of funds. Because I know that, speaking with other founders, that's a major concern, right? I was at NFT Fest and like that was a big topic. And it's been a big topic for a lot of people as well. It's like, hey, damn, like this project is running out of funds. And, we're feeling pretty comfy, but so we don't have like pressure on us to do anything like that. Obviously, we want to like we're still building on the project and we want to make sure it's growing during this time, of course. But there's no need to do desperate things.
Yep, perfect. So another question from Wood. Do you expect there to be a Rawfest event at NFT NYC 23?
I do expect there to be like meetups and events. Just depends on the event and what we're going to do there.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. And last question from Wood. Are there plans to continue evolving the story of LL, whether through comics or otherwise? I think we already touched on that one. So
That's on that one. Yep.
yeah, move on to Omni Lego. Uh, Question one: what are the next deliverables being worked on for the Lazy Lions brand? Sorry, I think we touched on that a little bit with the
Yeah,
loyalty program, right? Yeah.
yeah. So rewards and like what that could look like in the next evolution of that. So if we're just talking about Q1, the next version of Lazy, those are two of the big focuses.
Awesome. And question two from Omni: what's the current mid or long-term goals slash intentions? Somewhat sounds like the same
Well,
question.
yeah, similar to that, right? And like what rewards could look like. We're also working on things for the future as well,
Mhm.
right? So that way, when there is like during the next cycle, that like Lazy Lines is ready, everybody in the community gets like maximum value from these things. So like we are obviously the raw token, and the current plans for that, which I touched on before. That's something that we're speaking with partners. We're having these meetings, and we're seeing how that can look like. Those NFT collections, so even things like lionesses, and there are other ones as well. Like those are things that we're being worked on, and continue thinking about how we're gonna deploy them in the best way possible. Like with lionesses, like we're not exactly sure how that's gonna be deployed just yet, but like that'll be something else that is like being worked on during this time, so that way, uh, it will be ready to be deployed, and also like the marketing campaigns associated with that.
Yeah, cool. Next question from Omni as well. Do we have a current marketing strategy in dormancy or being developed? And if so, is there a projected timeline we would expect that to happen?
So like I mentioned, with like the marketing campaigns around those projects for the long term, and in the meantime, we've got to get more active on social media. I think looking back at like this last couple months, I think it's been better, but I think it can still continue to be better.
Perfect. Question from Behold the Assyrian. We've got a fellow Assyrian in the AMA channel. So I'd love to hear if we have any plans to bring the spotlight back onto the lines and potentially increase volume, whether that be through utility, collabs, etc.
I think that ties into
Correct.
what we spoke about with the Q1 goals. I'm really excited about rewards and what that can look like and the potential for that as well. So expect us to see a big push from that. I think the community is going to get excited by that as well. Once we see that in the flesh too, and I think that can be a big talking point on social media.
Perfect. And we've got Sargeras. I was just saying Shlama, which is like welcome in Assyrian for those of you that don't know. How you going, King? And then L Cub King. Do you think if there was more importance around sets, for example, that it would help build the Cub community and vice versa by default?
Uh, I think it would, yes. And so looking into how we can incorporate into rewards.
Great. And the last question in the AMA channel would be from Casanova. How many Lions
Hmm.
entered project ideas for Lions Den? Can we hear or read them in another capacity? So there was a total of 21 entries in Lions Den. We could only choose four, of course. And in terms of actually reading them in another capacity, it's a bit tough because we're not 100% sure if these guys would like to share it to the community, if they wanted to keep it private. So right now, we do have obviously the docs internal and what their ideas were, but maybe we can list out the names of who actually entered, and if they're willing to share their ideas, then they can share them. I think that makes more sense than sharing out what they've sent to us privately. I think. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Awesome. That's all the questions from the Discord AMA channel. Now we'll move on to the questions that we received from Twitter. Um, this one was from Willie Anderson. What are the next big things that current and prospective holders should be excited about?
So we touched on the rewards and the new series of Lazy. Yeah, I get really excited by those because I mentioned this before because I think they're like there are cool ways, and we're still fleshing this out in terms of how they can be incorporated into each other as well.
Yeah.
Um, particularly with like to earn aspects, right? Whether that's like where to earn or like yeah, mentioned scan to earn obviously as well. But there are cool concepts that we can do around that, particularly once you enter like the physical world and how you can get rewarded for showing the brand even in the real world, right? So it's like it's not just wearing displaying your profile photo on Twitter, but wearing the apparel in real life could also earn you rewards potentially.
Awesome. And question number two from Willie Anderson. Will LL be releasing a 2023 roadmap?
Comes down, I guess, keen to hear from the community.
Yeah.
If that's something that we would like to see or not.
Yeah. Feel free to post your feedback in the Cabana Bar channel as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on another roadmap. 100%. Got some more questions from Wood, but on Twitter this time. So, how does it feel rocking a duck PFP?
Not as good as it feels to rock a lion profile photo, that's for sure. But no, look, real Duck Masters, incredible community member, and I have multiple ducks. Just thought it was a funny way to, you know, I did lose a gentleman's bet um, with Duck Master about Australia and Argentina. I thought we played amazingly well.
Yeah.
I'll give it to like yeah, the Aussies played really really well. But if you're not winning, you're losing. So
Respectable bet, I'd say. Cool. So, question number two. This is just about Lazy Series. We already covered that. Three lines then update. We literally held that yesterday. The votes are currently up. Head over to the announcements channel and you'll be able to rewatch the full episode on YouTube, and then you can make your votes in the Lazy Vote channel as well. There were some awesome pictures that came up, so definitely tune in and listen to that. It was a lot of fun for us too as well.
Mhm.
Perfect. And Lazy Vote updates. We made an announcement about the blockchain game in Coinbase recently. That'll be in the announcements channel, and you know all the winners of the votes are now in the Lazy Votes channel, so be sure to check that out to get updated on that one specifically. Cool. Got a question from Coach B Patel. What are the team initiatives? What are the team initiatives to build trust and community with current and future holders?
I think trust is one of those things, and like communication that you're always working on, right? Because if you're not, then it's slowly dying. Right. So it's a good question. Yeah, one of the things that I'd like to do more of, and like one of the initiatives is like, just speaking with like community members like on a more regular basis. Like right now, it's a bit more ad hoc. Like there's always like DMs happening, and even phone like video calls and phone calls that we're having with community members. Or even things like Raw Kings, right? Like we have the Raw Kings set up in the channel, which is really useful for us. Like I've been pinging more and more there, especially as like we're ironing out our plans for Q1. Like it's a really important time. You obviously don't want to, create your plans and then, muck around with them. And just, having everything written down, the strategy for the year, the quarter, in December, I think is just obviously just good practice. So during this time, it's really good. So there'll be times where we're like, leaning more heavily than others, and I do think that builds trust as well. But I would like to see more organized things, like maybe we do like monthly calls with certain holders, right? Like an initiative that I think I've seen Creeps do, which is like anyone who has more than like 25 creeps, gets has like a monthly call with the founders and the team, and just get to discuss things, which I think is pretty cool because that's a way like just like a more regular channel. I do think whatever we need to do with these things as well, if we can start to incorporate more like uh, scheduled things, I think will be beneficial. So we're not, we're using everyone's time accordingly.
Yeah, most
If that's
definitely.
something that, if that's something that, yeah, holders are interested in, because I do think that would be valuable for us as well. So keen to hear thoughts and, other things that we can do. But, being more active on social media, definitely see, an increase in like, the trust, I think, with those things just based on feedback that we've seen. So, we need to be more active on social media again. We've been more active. We need to continue to be more active as well.
Hmm. Great. Another question from Coach. What activations to reward holders?
And just touching on that last question, because I saw MKP posted would like to see roadmap infographics. We've seen other projects do this, and it's been really well received. And I've gotten messages from community members saying that we should look into this. As part of our social media efforts, this is something that we're looking at. So can we release more of these infographics? Like it doesn't necessarily need to be infographics, but just any marketing material that's like easier to digest, right? Like from people in the community and external as well. So that we could for the purposes, I think, for people in the community to share out with external people, things that we could post about in our social media accounts, and just give an update on like, here's what Lazy Lions is doing, right? Because like, I think some people didn't even know that we had like, the partnership with NBA Sacramento Kings, and like that's shame on us, right? Because we had an activation and an NBA game, like the Lazy Lions logo, the mascot was on the jumbotron, or like on-court photos and everything. It's a big activation, and so things like that, those are lessons we learn from, and go, okay, like how can we make it more easy for people to share these things out? And that's what the marketing assistant will also be helping with too. And we had good feedback about like things like the press kit, which was surprising as well. Like I remember when we put that out,
Yeah.
it wasn't even for the intention of the community to like really be sharing that out, but everybody shared it out anyway. So those are things that we've definitely learned, and yeah, we need to be doing better at that for sure. Apologies. What was the other question? And we've gone through a lot of written questions.
Yeah.
Hey, I feel so we've gone over time. Apologies. This is because I got rugged earlier on, but I'm happy to keep going. Just being respectful of everyone's time. We definitely do want to have open Q&A with holders too. So
Yeah. Cool. So the question was, what activations to reward holders in the near future?
again, so rewards. Like once
Yeah.
we have that system set up, which is a bit more flexible as well, so we can do things like giveaways, maybe live, maybe we can enter with tickets, reward holders, so that way things that are supporting the brand, like I mentioned, not just the profile photo and emoji, but it could be other things as well, like user generated content or IP competitions monthly that the community gets to vote on. There are a lot of cool things that we can do to incentivize everybody in the community, and they're probably already doing, everyone in the community is already doing these things anyway. So it's not necessarily like, oh, like, more things that we need to do, but like people in the community are already doing these things. And I think we should reward that, right? Because it does help the project. And uh, so I think that rewards program will allow us to do that, and we'll fine tune it. Like, a big part of it will be getting feedback from the community and just making it the best that we can, and then the future of that, I think, in terms of like becoming a loyalty program. We spoke very early on. I remember back in like August, September about like the vision for rewards. Shared that pretty early on what that could be, and just imagine like a virtual or even real life. It could be like the ultimate like rewards card, right? And we've got with our partners, and you can use that card and it grants you access to certain things, both in real life, online as well. Um, I think that is something that we can, that is something that we'll keep on building, and I'm excited by that. So.
Yeah, perfect. And last question from Coach would be, how is the brand being built out to engage Web 2?
So we had that focus on the next series of Lazy. As we were looking at the go-to-market plan, it wasn't solid enough, right? So that's why we didn't go ahead with it. Okay, like how is this going to work really well? I do get excited by things like the PBT, the physical back token, because I think it's a bit more easy to understand for like Web 2 users. But there's still that education piece, right? So, I don't have a great answer for this because I don't think it's a straightforward problem to solve, right? Like obviously alternative revenue streams, that is something that, we need to and will bring in, right? I have no doubt about that. It's just, how we do that, like which way it actually ends up working. I think we're gonna have to do some experiments and see which one works best, particularly with the go-to-market strategy, right? Which is probably the most important part. So like, um, yeah, we'll be seeing some experiments. Lazy will be part of that, but we don't exactly know which one it will be yet.
Awesome. We've got two questions here that touch on, the future and also about Lazy Series 1 from BKD Cryptosican. So thank you for submitting your questions. We have touched on those already, so I will just kindly move past those. Um, and moving on to, AO, who's asking for current slash active partnerships right now.
Sure. So we're still in touch with Sacramento Kings. There were some plans that we're looking at a bit more into we're close to the end of the year now, but like towards mid of next year, early next year. So there's something that we're still fleshing out. Like it's dependent on some of their other like partners too. But we're in touch with them. Uh, in terms of like, obviously Coinbase we spoke about. Um, a lot of these, we are speaking with with new potential partners as well. I mentioned the drinks fridge. Um, so not confirmed just yet. So I don't want to speak about that because these plans. It's even more difficult now to get these plans sorted because of the wider environment. Things like FTX and SVF. Like these things like do hurt the overall space. It just makes it harder to do deals because like it doesn't look it's not the most like appetizing thing right now looking at like the crypto space. Um, unfortunately, but that'll change, and it's not impossible. Um, Puma, that one's like, yeah, I mean that one it's going a bit cold. Uh, Puma, they I know they went with their own NFT project. Um, but yeah, that one's going to be cold.
Okay, cool. I think that's all the questions from your Twitter post, Ash. So the next place that we had questions was from one of the groups that we're in. It's a Trade Alliance group. We had a question from 90s fan, basically just asking about the next step for Lazy Lions, which we've already answered. But is that going to tie into the lore of Lazy Lions? Is part of his question, which I think we could touch on a little bit more in terms of
Uh,
yeah. So is
Sorry, I
the
was
next
just
steps?
reading. I was reading Crypto
Ah,
Registry's question about that. We'll come back to it, but yeah, apologies. What was the question?
so it was what's next big step for Lazy Lions, which we've already touched on, and is that going to touch?
Hmm.
Is that going to tie into the lore of Lazy Lions, which we can maybe touch on a little bit more? Um, how we're going to build that into, I think we did touch on that already with how we're going to build it into like the rewards program that's coming up, the loyalty
Yeah.
program, should I say? So, um, yeah. There's a
I think
question
we're
from.
trying. How many?
Yeah, go
We
ahead.
should probably try and yeah, we'll try and go through these next questions a bit more
Quickly.
streamlined, so that we'll jump into the live Q&A.
Yeah, so there's only a
And
couple
the
more
Discord
questions
questions.
here. Literally
Cool.
only two more. So, what are the current plans for the budget that was allocated for the blockchain game?
The experiments to find alternative revenue streams is the big one. Yeah, that's the big one, right? So like things like um, taking Lazy to Web 2, right? The rewards program, developing that into potentially like a SaaS platform that other projects can use, and then like becoming a loyalty program that Web 2 users can use. Like potentially that's what budget will go on to as well. So these are things that like yeah, I feel like there's safer bets, and there's probably like you know like the potential for these things to blow up as well, I think is quite high too. Like this loyalty program that becomes like a decentralized loyalty program. I think like the that could be really really big, and it could be. I can see the benefits that it has for Web two brands, right? Like I've been a big advocate for this from the beginning, right? Like build community, don't build customers. Um, this is something that Web two like will benefit Web two brands, right? Like there are definitely benefits to building like that sense of community, and giving ownership through whether it's through IP or giving the tokens out, um, that can give benefits, whether it's like in terms of like Web two brands, it could be additional discounts, it could be like unique experiences that only the holders get. Like there are so many ways to play with it, and if you just give it out to your brand advocates, right, like the ones who are like loyal brand advocates anyways, you can build deeper trust. Like we've seen the benefits on social media and what that means if they're like looking at like their CAC and like lifetime value too as well. And like there's studies on these things, and I think it just makes sense. Like we had an experiment on this in 2021. Well, like in the power of I think the opportunity is there for Web two brands. The question is just how do you build that community? And I think it comes down to you obviously got to reward them as well. Like you can't,
Mhm.
you know, sharing value is like one of the core concepts of Web three and crypto, right? And like that's the power that you get by being able to send payments and digital assets at the speed of light, right, through the blockchain. So that's some of my thoughts on the loyalty program and like how like what that could become. But baby steps right now. The beautiful part is like we're one of the users of this program because we have a very active community that we want to continue to reward further. We've already given out rewards was $1 million USD in ETH, right? Not some not Doodle Poo ERC20 token or whatever you want to call it. It's like real ETH. So that's the best part. We build it for as great as we can for ourselves, the project, for the community. Then we can look at turning this into a SaaS platform later.
Yep. Cool. Moving on, we have that's pretty much all the questions. I just want to shout out a couple of people as well because Kingberries sent a large, obviously like a thread in the chat in the group. There was no specific questions, but a lot of great ideas. So cheers for sending that through, King. We've both had a read of that. And the last question was there was a discussion on staking, which we've already touched on. So that's pretty much all the questions that we had come through for us today. So I guess quickly just checking Cabana Bar as well. I mean, our general chat, we've got a question from DD King. Are there plans to incorporate a learn/earn education arm in Discord? Quizzes for holders on topics about blockchain /Web3 terminology security, and so that to project specific quizzes. Sorry. I really do like this idea. Whether it's in Discord or whether it's actually on our new loyalty program, I think there's a cool way that we can incorporate it into the new loyalty program, where if people jump on and they answer specific questions correctly, they can start to accumulate points that they can go ahead and use on whatever's available in the program. But we get a lot of questions about incorporating a learn to earn education program, especially with the Cub side of things as well. There's definitely an open door for that. So that would be my perspective on it. Yeah, and ours. Cool. Otherwise, I think we're open to bring some people up on stage. So if there's anyone that wants to come up, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll bring you up, ask a couple questions. It's been, roughly about an hour and 10 minutes now, so we're happy to take questions for a couple, another 10 to 15. Ash, and yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if everyone, let's definitely feel free to request.
yeah. There's been a lot of questions, so I'll be curious to see what's left for people to ask. But if you just want to come up, have a chat as well, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. You consider launching the Queen's NFT line through Lazy Merge. Crypto Registry, I like the way you're thinking, right? Like, that could be an exciting way to do it, right? You buy you've got the apparel, whether you buy it through Web2 or find a way of rewarding certain holders with the apparel or whatever it looks like in terms of getting the apparel to everybody. But then, yeah, once you scan it, you might have a chance of like getting a lazy queen. That could be pretty cool. Like,
Mm,
yeah, that's a fun idea. And those are the type of things that we're able to do um, you know, with these PBTs. Like the first person who scans it, boom, like that one gets airdropped the token, who's able to claim the token, with the wallet that owns that PBT. So
mm,
there are definitely fun ways that we can incorporate the real world. We can incorporate rewards as well. Maybe if you have like a higher rewards multiplier, it increases the chance that you'll get one as well. So definitely fun ways we can use it. And when we just talk about PBTs, like I could go on for like
mm.
quite a bit because I think once you introduce like physical items into this, like this concept is like it just goes.
Yeah, it's definitely an
It's been around for the longest time.
engaging experience, like scanning one of your hoodies and then getting an NFT from it. It's a different experience to minting it like on a computer or on your phone. So it's definitely a lot more fun too.
Absolutely. And all the feedback we've had with Lazy merch is, people love wearing it, the compliments that they, get and the questions that they get. And yeah, it's really cool merch. And I think or apparel. And it's um I mean who wants to look anything other than Lazy Lions anyway? Seriously.
Yeah. Cool. We've got Beano up on stage, King. It's always a pleasure.
Yo, 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 what's up, my guys?
King,
Asher, I
how's it
feel
going?
you. Yeah, who wants to wear anything but Lazy Lions, right? I mean,
100%.
that Lazy Lions merch one drop was fantastic. I mean, it totally represented the brand. And I don't think so many people realize what went into that logo, right? I mean, it was like the paw, but it was the private island. It was also a
Hmm.
crown, all in one. I mean, that thing was beautiful. So mad props to that. So I got no
Definitely
questions.
agreed.
I'm just here to support and be here for you guys because you guys are amazing.
No.
And like doing these things and being transparent and being educated enough to know what's going on in the market. And uh, I mean, I just love this project and I'm just here.
Mm.
So
Love that, King. It's always great having you. I think since the like very early mint days, always been
I
part of
know,
these.
I know. Yeah, it's been a
It's
while.
always
It's
good.
crazy how long it's been. It's been over a year now, a little more than a year, and this is just it's just cool. you know and this brand is so iconic, and one thing, like people respect Lazy Lions in this space, and one thing I know, like, we need to do is like do more education things, because I think
Mm.
that's the biggest problem, like right now these
Hmm.
days, especially with so much going on in the market with FTX and stuff. Like, nobody really knows what's going on with crypto. Like what people don't understand is, like, just holding like self custody, right? Like, people wouldn't have been hurt if they held their own cryptocurrency in their own digital wallets. It didn't matter if the exchange collapsed if you held your own crypto. So like that, there's misinformation out there, and I think we do a great job as educators. And I think we should step forward and do more of that and be known as like the most knowledgeable people in this space. Because Asher, Nine, you both super knowledgeable, and I think that's something people look up to us for. And we've always had that in our Discord, right? We've had Lions teach Cubs,
Mhm.
and I mean it's awesome, and more people need to know about that.
Absolutely agree, King. I mean, even the spaces, we used to have a ton of those. We still see quite a bit of those, especially like community run spaces on Twitter. And there's always education involved in those. I agree. We're leaders of the space for a very long time, and uh, with that does come that responsibility to education because I mean we get a ton of new holders all the time. Like we'll say every single day, we're welcoming people into the Pride, which is incredible, even during the cycle. Um, and I think like overall, like even market share has been increasing for Lazy Lines for sure. We need to do. There are things that we need to do better, and bring more volume, bring more absolutely. Um, you know, I think not having as many holders leave as well. So like what can we do there? Is it more? Is it more education? Is it more infographics, things like that about the brand? Is it more about Web3 in general? Like you're definitely right. We need a. I do think that's an important part, and hopefully these AMAs as well like provide some insights into what's going on with the overall space. Absolutely, like keep your keys, know your keys, know your Bitcoin, and we didn't touch on about other projects and what they're doing with the RC20 tokens. So I'm happy to potentially we can talk a bit about that as well, if there aren't other questions too, as to, and why we're so hesitant about promoting these things.
Yeah, and just goes to show the importance of education and learning. It's been a year in the space. Granted, it went super quick, but there's still so much need for education still a year later. So yeah, definitely an important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, it's been over a year now, and we've like, I feel like we've seen it all. And like I was saying, like, there's nothing that comes out, you know, and I get messages about this, like, and people like just are enthusiastic, which is great. Like, like going through the world of Web3, and maybe I'm a bit like nerdy because I've got the tech and programming background, but I'd like, I geek out over this kind of stuff. And for like the longest time, I mean, even when we were like kids, and
Yeah,
I was like, hey, like, explaining like how the binary system works and like, how encryption works. Like, Nibs mentioned, like, dude, your eyes light up, like,
yeah,
like you found like the love of your life or something. I'm like, like I just geek out over this kind of stuff. But like, it's really interesting. It's really like, it is very techy as well. So it's like,
yeah,
obviously everybody's got their own things that they're focused on. Now you got to worry about encryption. It's like, nah, if we expect everybody to be like, you know, have a degree in computer science to be able to, you know, join Web3, like Quit mentioned on the last space, and we're not going to get very far. So it's like, it shouldn't be that kind of experience. So the user experience right now is not great because you do like there is an element of being, that education that's required. So yeah, there are definitely things that we can be doing to help with that. But in terms of like ERC20 tokens, just touching on that subject specifically. So why are we hesitant about like posting out on our social media accounts or even from our personal accounts? Why did I post out? And people said it was a bit like cryptic as well about like how I was like bashing other ERC20 projects. Like frankly, to be honest, like a little bit, I don't really care about that because my main priority is Lazy Line. Whatever, if I think there's something that's like not good for community, I will just say it. There are times in the past where, especially from like people from within the community, and maybe we gave benefit of the doubt, and then that ended up exploding because we're like, oh, look, ended up working, like it ended up not working out that right, not working out that great, and then it hurts holders. Like for example, with the, we get feedback from this still to this day about like the Lazy Ape, like the yacht club thing or whatever it was called.
yeah,
Is that the name of it? Yeah. Like, that's something that we get feedback about now. And it's like, why didn't you guys say something back then? I feel like it's one of those situations where we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, but that shouldn't be the reason why we don't say something. I think we just need to come up with a better system, like with holders when it is people from within the community and they are releasing an NFT project or an ERC20 token. What should we be doing there? Because do we then have to like shut down? Because frankly, right, like we're in a space where like most of these things do fail, and it's quite hard to determine if somebody's actually like an actual rug or not. Not saying those guys are. I'm not, or any project. I'm not sure. Like it's a, how do you deem what a rug is? You know, is like misleading conduct, like something that's actually illegal. Is it ethically wrong? Because there are so many projects that could potentially fall into that category. So, how do we handle these things? Determine. For some of these like ERC20 tokens, the reason why I posted about this is vampire attacks are very common, right? And like to give you an idea of what a vampire attack is, it's like when somebody like releases a token and it targets a set group of holders, right? for the purpose of like taking liquidity out from that system and putting it to another system. If you look at it from just like trading terms, right? It's a very common thing. Like that's how these new projects like will spawn up. And it's just a way of like, hey, instead of like building up a community, why don't we just give this token to that community and then we bring them to ours, right? So that's something that's very common in the space. And however like way you want to mask it, you can mask it whatever way you want. That's fine. If it actually gave like if the token was actually valuable and it was like long-term sustainable, then different story, right? But the problem is we haven't seen anyone in the space do this. And what I've seen, like even with the latest one, like with I don't mean this to like shit on other projects. It's just the truth. Like, and this is my opinion. It's like I haven't seen anything that makes me go, oh wow, this is a sustainable token, right? So if it's not a sustainable token, right, here's the problem. If we go out promoting it, first off, we don't promote shit, right? Because unless if it's like lazy line stuff, because it's us and we know what we're doing. If we go out and say, yeah, this is okay, you should go for it. Sure, people will claim these tokens. That's fine. People can do whatever they want, but if there's like approval from Lazy Lions, there will be people in the community who go out and buy these, and they'll go out and buy more tokens, and they'll put more of their coin into it, like hard-earned money into it, and then it's like we know this, these things.
Yeah, like Asher, I feel you 100%. I mean, that's something that you and Nine do very well. You're not going to recommend something that you don't believe in. And so many projects do that and they get that wrong. And you guys are great as leaders because of that, because you do want to protect the pride, and that is number one. I mean, there are so many projects out there that we could be like, oh, yeah, you should get in that. And if you say that yourself from your account, you know how many Lazy Lions people will jump into something? Unless you know everything, like how many famous people and big companies were into FTX and they thought that was sound and safe. I mean, it's not dumb people there. So it is very smart the way that you handle things and approach things, because it represents you as a person, but also Lazy Lions as a whole. And you're very smart to do that. So I love the idea of postponing, like even Roar token as a whole, until you know exactly what the benefits of that are and how it is going to work for our community. And that is 100%. I love that you talk about how you geek out and you nerd out about Web3 and crypto, and you're talking to people in real life. Like when I do that, like I'm a photographer in real life and I start to talk to people about it, and you just see them, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been to NFT or Web3 or crypto meetups in my city here in Tampa, Florida, and like I talk to some people and they don't even have digital wallets. It's just like, what are you doing here? I'm like, there's so many people that just don't know about this space. And like, yeah, we've all talked about it for a year and a half. Like, we're so new, but we're so new because people, they just don't know. They don't understand. And just going back to the way that you handle things by not recommending anything or posting about it or sharing is so smart, because as soon as somebody gets burned in this space, they write it off and they tell all their friends, like, I don't want anything to do with crypto or NFTs. And that's it, because they had one bad experience. And you guys don't allow people to do that. And I respect you because of it.
Appreciate that, King. I mean, we're definitely not going to do it, especially like, you mentioned with FTX, right? A lot of those people were like paid spokespeople as well. Like obviously, I mean, what are you going to do when you print out, billions of dollars? That's based on air. You just go out and buy everybody. You talk about SBF all the time, and what a bad actor that person is. Of course, like the damage they've done to the space. But yeah, I mean, even
I'm
with
in
us,
Tampa,
right?
Asher. I'm in Tampa. Tom Brady, the quarterback for the Buccaneers, he was a huge backer and investor in FTX. So everybody looks at him. You know how many people just love Tom Brady and probably bought the FTT token just because of that? I mean, that's how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And like the damage that does to like and what they're probably going through is just like and we had a ton of people reach out at the end of the day. You can probably like everyone can probably guess that like even Lazy Lions are hey again, like being advisor on like, this or like tweet this, and it's just like nah man, like we are like that's like first off like ethically I don't even know. Like, don't believe in this thing. And like that's not something we would do anyway. So like, we've never done any of that kind of stuff. No, and it's like we would be like, yeah, it's got to be if we're gonna like put something out there, we have to like believe in it. And so yeah, like that's the going back to why we haven't promoted these other things. Just doesn't have our belief. I'm like sorry, not to say like the people behind these things are bad or bad intentions. I think if anything, maybe they just maybe a bit less educated in terms of like on this stuff, like the Web3 stuff. Obviously, it could be fantastic people, extremely bright in other areas, but on this Web3 stuff, it hasn't clicked yet. And I feel like, from the things I've seen are just mistakes that we've already been through very early on and things that we've understood. And it's just like, I don't think this is going to work. But yeah, not a slight on the people at all. Not saying that these, people are doing these other projects, and it's, not just we spoke about BAP, of course, obviously, that they had a big marketing push and they got a lot of attention from the Pride, which is why we're addressing it. But this has been happening since day one. People wanting to release tokens and other benefits to holders to bring them in. I mean, NFT Worlds did something like this as well, where they like created Lazy Lions Land and then sold that, and all these other things. And it's like, look, that's cool, but getting us to promote the stuff when we don't fully believe in it. Yeah, and we saw what happened with that one. And it was like, oh, big surprise, right? And people bashed us a little bit about that too. Like, hey, why aren't you jumping on this? And we've just been we've made that decision to be a bit more, a bit more caution with these things.
I mean, as you have to be, right? Like, because people are going to want to use the Lazy Lions name to get a leg up. So if they could use you to validate their project, that's all they're trying to do. I mean, that happens in every industry. So you're very smart about that. And Nine, you were about to say something.
I can't remember what it was. That's all right.
Ah.
I think I was going to invite up LL Cup King because he requested, but
Yeah, you should. So I have met Nine in real life, and Nine is a super cool dude. And if you guys haven't met either of these two, you're here with some real ones.
appreciate it, King. It was a fun time in Sacramento. Got to experience my first NBA game, and yeah, we went out. I think we went out for dinner after that. That's right. Yeah, that was awesome meeting you, King.
Yeah, likewise. That was a great time. Yeah.
I've just invited up LL Cup King to see if he's still there, but if not, if anybody wants to request, it is getting a bit further into the AMA, so we'll take maybe one more question if anybody wants to come up, and we can probably wrap up.
Yeah, sure. And just touching a bit more on like, there's so much value in like, Lazy Lions in the long term, right? And like we're fully behind that. That's why like we've, since the beginning, we're like, we see that, we knew that like, it was obvious there was going to be another like cycle and stuff like that, ebbs and flows to it. Obviously the way it went down was a bit cinematic, right? Movies about this for sure, right? And like the scandal and like it being bigger than Enron, like, you're definitely gonna want some popcorn for this one. But it's not like overall, if you took a step back, it's like, yeah, like things got a little bit heated. But the underlying technology, the way you can use it to build brands, the true ownership behind it, like there's just this is like we're full believers in this, and we're not going anywhere because there's so much value in this long term as well. So anything that like can potentially harm that or damage that, we've got our focus. We're super confident in it, so I'm super excited for the future.
No one has requested, but there was a question from MKP just touching a little bit on the loyalty program. So he says, can you touch on the difference between ERC20 tokens versus the new rewards program / Raw? What I'm hearing, Raw is going to be more like a rewards program on a CC / airline where you collect redeemable points. Is that accurate? Would it be better to call it Raw points to differentiate? So you're trying to ask, is there a differentiation between the points that you earn in the loyalty program or in the Raw token?
Good question. So the way we've structured rewards from the beginning is actually similar to like an airline program. Like legally, that's how we got like the okay on that, and like it's very similar with the characteristics of it too. Because it's not just you don't just get rewards for doing nothing, because that starts to get a bit shaky in terms of legal ground. So like that's the current system how we've described it. Like in the past, I've used that description. It's like an airline reward system, right? In terms of the difference between that token, the raw points or whatever you want to call it, versus Raw token, yes. First off, we would start with the non-ERC20 version, right? And that's because like we don't want to drop the token in this environment anyways. And secondly, let's perfect this system first, right? Like let's keep working on it, get feedback from the community on it. Let's make those tweaks, get the system really well. I'm sure we're going to learn some things and be like, oh, the tokenomics of this weren't so great, and the game theory behind this wasn't so great, and then we'll learn from that. And then once you've got a system, I'm like, yeah, like the amount of points that are going out to the holders makes sense. That's going out to the wider ecosystem makes sense. The way you redeem them, all of that fits in. Then we can look at, dropping like the raw token on that potentially. That's something that we're looking at right now. And I think like it's an exciting future because, it's not just like the loyalty program is something I could talk about for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably we don't have, I think we've gone overboard on like this AMA and, the amount of like 2 a.m. chats I've had with Nine about this and like the future of like what it could look like, because you've got a decentralized loyalty system that can be interoperable with other brands. So it's like it just goes back to taking the Amex points out of Amex, right? And we've seen the excitement from like Web2 brands already on this. We spoke about Starbucks, right, and what they're looking to do with like Polygon and their own Web3 strategy, and other Web2 brands are looking at this, right? And if you're, I like the potential that we see is like a very practical one for Web2 brands, which is building community, right? Because there are direct benefits to doing that. And the costs in terms of the brand, like in terms of the benefits that they get, like the significant ROI, we think, because just look at the experiment that was run in 2021, right? And how these brands were just, these massive brands were able to be created. So, not that it has to be on that scale for it to be successful for Web2 brands either, but, these are some of the things that I think rewards can potentially offer to Web2 brands, to Web3 brands when it, fully develops, becomes that SaaS platform, and what's the role that Raw Token could play in those things as well, And when we think about utility for tokens, I think that one, it has a lot more weight behind it than most tokens that we see, particularly tokens where the main utility is to buy more tokens. That one, yeah, I don't think you have to be like an economics major or like a Web3, expert or programmer to see some of the flaws in that system.
Yeah, I really like I liked how you talked about game theory as well. I mean, we've seen our existing community love that type of stuff. Just an idea would be like dailies, where you go in and you do some action and you earn some type of loyalty points. And it just reminds me of what we had in Discord early on with the gaming channels. You earn points, but there was no reward for the points. But people would go in there every single day claiming their dailies and playing, but you couldn't actually use the points for anything. So it just reminds me of like how much community members love doing that type of stuff, and how we can incorporate that into the new program as well. So yeah, that's something I'm excited about. How can we really include game theory into the loyalty program?
Yeah, absolutely, and rewarding just like things that are already beneficial to the project that the community is already doing.
Yeah.
I think that just encourages that deeper sense of community too.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with creating a token is you have to have the ecosystem for it. The token has to be used, traded, exchanged, transferred. People have to be using the token to create value from it. And that's the same as any NFT project or any token or any cryptocurrency. As soon as people stop using it, trading it, selling it, like then it dies. So, I mean, any project can just be like, hey, we have a token, but what's the point of it if you're not utilizing it? So that aspect of developing it first and knowing what the use is and it has potential, like, and then you develop it better. Like that is exactly the way to handle it.
There needs to be like some type of sustained, reason to use the token besides it only pumping because of the hype pre-launch. That's essentially what you need. But
Yeah,
I mean, we can look at ApeCoin for an example. Like, what was that worth at one point? Almost $30 US dollars per ApeCoin, and now what are they? $3? I mean, if that. I
it's all
mean,
lead up to the other
I
side,
mean,
right?
if the ecosystem, if the ecosystem isn't there for that token to be used, then it's not being used. It's just something for somebody to buy and speculate on. So there has to be the use case for it.
absolutely. And raw, ApeCoin is, one of the better performing ones, right? If we looked at we've done this study as well, like which Web3 projects tokens are actually still alive. Most have gone to zero, and by like zero, I mean like there's no liquidity in the token. Like good luck getting out.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
like ApeCoin is one of the best performing ones. I tweeted about this earlier, a while back actually. It was about like ApeCoin being the one who's like only launched properly and or like done it right. And what I meant is like the way they launched using like centralized exchanges, which I know is like a dirty word at the moment, but what I mean by that is like the way they launched brought in like not just, it wasn't just like Web3 as well. Like there was a chance for like Web2 people to like jump into the system as well because it came through CEX and there was a lot more liquidity. I haven't seen other projects do this. Right? They all like just drop the ERC20 contract, um, and people get it through DApps like Uniswap or whatever. And that's it's just different because you're just dealing with Web3 users. Someone in the Web2 world isn't gonna, just think about the logistics involved. Somebody wants to buy ApeCoin, they can just jump on Coinbase and get ApeCoin on their Coinbase wallet or Binance or whatever it is. Quite easy. Whereas if it was just launched, just by the smart contract itself and it wasn't going through CEX, you'd only be really Web3 users because like which normie or Web2 person is gonna get up an Ethereum address, MetaMask if they haven't already, put in ETH, jump to Uniswap, figure out how to use a DApp, convert it, make sure that they're not getting scammed, and then finally get the ApeCoin and confirm that they actually have it. Like there's so many steps in that user experience. It's pretty gross just even saying it out, right? Just
You're
thinking about
right.
it
I
in
mean,
perspective.
that's not going to happen. A normal person who doesn't know Web3 isn't going to do all that. They're not going to jump through all those hoops to get it. So, which is why ApeCoin has been successful as well, right? Because also at the time when it launched, like buying a Bored Ape was so much money, like, but people could get involved in the project by buying the coin. And even through this bear market, it's still holding value shows that they've done something right. So it's crazy. It's just crazy right now, like how well like the Lions floor has held because people have just left because the excitement is not there. There just aren't as many people talking about it. But we're still holding strong. Our main key people are still here. We're still educating. We're still promoting. We're still spreading love and awareness. And that's what it's about. I mean, because it's tough, you know? So,
Yeah.
It definitely is. We're seeing a lot of projects, seeing more and more announcements and projects closing up as well because they're running out of, funds or just, other reasons as well. And I expect that to keep happening, especially
it's
during
not
like what I
Yeah, and Azure, it's not just like the funds, it's the fact that it's just ran out of excitement because for a while it's been just like not the most positive news. And last year, like everything
hmm
was up and up and up, and everybody was like, "What NFTs? What?" Like, and there was so much excitement. So now the people that are here are the real builders, the people that are like serious educators, and the people that believe in this, and that's what's so cool. So, and it's just a matter of time when it will turn. I mean, it's not just the NFT market, crypto market. It's economies across the world. There's a war in Ukraine. Like there's so much going on right now that we just have to continue to show up and be here. And you both do that. And that's the main reason I came up here is just to like show my respect and props to you. I greatly appreciate the both of you and what Lazy Lions are about.
Appreciate that, King. Very, very nice words. And it's always a pleasure to have you up. So, anytime you want to come up and speak when we're on stage and we're inviting community members up, feel free. 100%. Cool. I think that's pretty much the Discord AMA. We've been going for quite a while now. Before we do wrap up, I just did want to say, in terms of the loyalty program, we're always open to hearing ideas. We want to build this. Obviously, it's going to be our goals for the next quarter, but we want to hear your ideas as well. So please, if you have any ideas on on things you'd like to see, post it in the ideas and feedback channel, and our team regularly reviews that. And yeah, we've taken many ideas from that channel specifically and built it into things that we have for the future. So yeah, perfect. I guess with that, guys, if there's nothing else, we'll wrap up here. But thank you to everyone that tuned in. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing these every 2 weeks, right? The next ones are going to be Twitter Spaces, and
Yep.
potentially more in between those as well with like external ones. So Yeah. See you all at the next one. Be noted. Thank you so much for coming up, and yeah,
Appreciate
Kings,
it.
Queens. Thanks everybody for listening in
Cheers.
and asking the questions too.
Yeah, and it will be recorded as well and be posted in Discord. So, yeah. See you guys.